Okay, so what are good applications of AI in industry, let's say, or the enterprise, and what is not a good application of AI? Um, so, in my view, the real benefit of AI and generative AI technologies, in particular, that's not the only kind of AI, is really as a productivity gain, right? And so, if you're going to use AI to simply replace people, it's probably not a good use case, right? Probably. But if you use AI to give people superpowers and give them a lot more productivity and therefore have the whole company be a lot more productive than it is, that is really the big use case, really. I think really is a productivity gain. It could be at least a 10x productivity gain over the long term, right? Not today, but that's definitely where we're going to. So in that way, in that sense, I think introducing AI deep into industry is going to be a complete game changer. So we then think about, if that's true, where do we think is the best application to insert AI into your company? So I have a biased view based on my experience and what we're doing at QRA, but there are also historical trends. And what you see almost always in history is, as new technology, especially enabling technology, gets introduced, what happens is errors are caught earlier and humans elevate themselves to a higher level. They move out of the low level down in the weeds and they lift themselves up to have a broader view and earlier in the process. And if you look at now product development, especially high stakes engineering endeavors like energy, transportation, aviation, semiconductors, really medical devices, really the productivity killer, both in terms of the actual labor hours spent, time to market, and even the general feeling of fulfillment of your engineering team. The biggest problem is this idea of rework, right? In some industries call them escape costs, meaning you have one phase of your development that should catch particular errors that it doesn't catch, escape, that's why they're called escape costs, and they're caught later down the site, later in the development phase. These are generally a lot more expensive, a lot more problematic, and drain morale, extend time to market, and can incur even reputational costs. In the extreme case, think of a recall automotive company for a defective part, right? Well, there is a QA department that should catch defectiveness. Sometimes they're not caught, and so recall is so much more expensive. And so this idea of eliminating rework and catching defects or potential defects as early as possible is, I think, really one of the best use cases of AI that a company can have. And so that's one of the reasons we're focusing at the very early stages of product development, in the design phase, in the requirements phase, when you're still writing prototype code. If you could catch errors right there, even potential errors right then and there, you want to fix these potential defects by a few taps of your backspace key, not by a product recall. Right? That's really what you wanna aim for. Right? I think a good example of this over the last decade is the whole DevOps revolution, right? Where they went from big companies launching a website, like an airline industry launching a website that used to take months and months and months. They went now to having releases on a almost daily basis, right? And that's because of DevOps caught these errors so early. As soon as developers were submitting code, they caught the errors right away, they got fixed right away. And so the whole thing could speed up. I think we're at the point now where we can talk seriously about these types of techniques being elevated even at a higher level, a whole systems level now, not just at where DevOps traditionally plays, right? You see also the Toyota way in manufacturing actually was the grandfather of this type of approach. I will move to DevOps, and now we're moving into systems. And I think the generation of AI will enable us to be able to build products either 10 times more complicated, 10 times faster, or be 10 times more certain that what you're doing does not have any defects and things will flow much smoother. Right? We're not there yet, but that is definitely the trajectory that we're on now. So when companies are looking to introduce some AI technology, either in-house develop AI or generative AI technologies into their own internal processes, or if they want to adopt tools that use these processes, I think one place that you can focus on is not the technology, but the use case. So focus on what is a very specific use case that will enhance your productivity going forward. So these could be things like where humans generally are not very good at, or if they are very good at, it requires a lot of high value engineers or high value team members in general to do something because of their expertise. They need to do it, but in the end, it's something that's necessary, but really low value add to the final product. Right? That happens a lot, right? Especially in engineering. There's a lot of high value engineers spending time on low value activities. So there's a good example of a use case. One, because some of the technology that exists, some of the tools that exist, can actually do it better. And two, also important, is that it frees up your most valuable human resources to work on items that are the most valuable for the bottom line of the company, right? And that makes both the team member feel good as well as enhancing the company overall. So that's really where you should focus your efforts on. And I would say that would be, one of the most important things. And from that, you can now look at where, out of those use cases, which ones are the ones where the technology can actually make an impact. And for that, I would say things like the answer you get or the conclusion you make, there's not one or a small number of correct answers. There is no the correct answer. There's answers that are good enough, right? And so if there's only one way to do things, you just need to discover that one way to do things. A human is probably your best bet, right? Or if you need to have the right answer, if not a human, then you need some kind of deterministic methods, very traditional algorithmic methods to do that. But in many cases, you don't need to have, there is not only one way to do it, there's many ways to do it. The problem usually is not that there is only one way to do it, and you have to figure out what that way is. Oftentimes the problem is that there's just too many methods to do it, and you don't know which is the right one, or even know how to select between those, right? Something like that, AI can do very well. So, for example, writing requirements is one way. There are general rules about what makes a good requirement or what makes a bad requirement, but a given person writing a requirement today and writing a requirement a month from now, it's almost impossible for them to be exactly the right thing. In fact, if this person writes the right thing, you say, what kind of weirdo is this? A robot is that produces the exact same thing word for word. It never happens, right? Nor is it required to happen. You just need to have it good enough. Right? Same thing with developers writing code. You write some function. It's never, if you write, a certain task, you have a function you write today, you write the same thing a month from now, it's not going to be the exact same code, line for line. It's going to be a little bit different. They're still both going to be correct. So in cases where there are many ways you can get the result that you want, but you can also check to see if the answer you have is good enough. You have a very deterministic, a very well-defined way to check if the answer is good enough or not. Then AI is actually, a good approach for that, because you don't have to rely on it. You can just check to see if it is correct or not. Now, if checking for correctness is also as difficult as coming up with a problem in the first hand, it doesn't really buy you much, right? But there are many problems for which checking for correctness or sufficiency is a lot simpler than generating the solution in the first place. That would be a good use case. So if we find the intersection of, like Venn diagrams, if you look at the intersection of all these circles, that's a sweet spot where Gen AI can work well. At least that's what we try to do at QRA.